Hey, John.
Angie.
I had a very interesting aha moment this past week.
Oh, I love your aha moments. What was it?
This is an interesting one. I was having a conversation with a fellow coach, and she said something to me, and it just jarred me like almost cold water on the face.
What did she say? What did she say?
Well, it was interesting. She was really feeling challenged by the coaching relationship that she was about to embark on. It was a new client, and she was kind of I don't wanna get into it. It wasn't like imposter syndrome
Mm.
as much as it was turning into, I have no knowledge of what they think they need from me. Can I coach them?
Mm. Oh, do you think this relates to something I often chat about with fellow coaches of can you coach anyone on anything?
I think it's right in that right there. Can you
Well,
coach anyone on anything? Yes.
there's a conversation worth having. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Coaching Clinic with John and Angie.
The show for professional coaches who wanna develop their skills and grow their business.
Follow the show on your favorite podcast app.
And join us every Wednesday for new episodes. Yeah. I think what jarred me was the fact that I didn't like, although I was asking that question to her and kind of coaching her, right? But the reality after the conversation was, I don't know if there's like a black and white answer to that.
Mm. It is an interesting question, and I think sometimes it even shows up as an internal conflict with coaches, and sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
shows up as a professional conflict with coaches.
Mm.
Well, I guess we can sort of get into that a bit more. But when I first learned coaching as a skill, when I did my correspondence course in coaching before
Mm-hmm.
they had all these like places where you can actually go and even study. I think there's like a college course somewhere or several in the UK now that teach it. Before all of that, in olden days, um, when I learned coaching, I learned the basics of coaching, and I guess it was mostly along the lines of ontological coaching. You ask the questions, you help draw out the answers from people,
Mm-hmm.
and in that sense, you should be able to coach anyone on anything. If all you're doing is asking the questions and trying to pull stuff out of them to get the answers inside, and if with the right sort of questioning and in interrogative skills, you should be able to
Yes.
help pull those answers out for people without without consulting, without mentoring. So the question often comes up as, criticism of coaching, that coaches often haven't done the thing that the person going to them coaching wants success with. And that can
Wait, wait,
end
wait,
up,
wait.
yeah,
Go ahead, because I just like I'm saying, but you know what? If we were required to have like if I'm coaching a surgeon or I'm coaching like I have coached so many people from so many different backgrounds under so many different roles and I wouldn't even be a coach per
right,
se. But okay, sorry, go ahead. I just had to. I was like, "Yes." And there are people that believe that, right?
right.
That
It turns into what you could call a crisis of ethos, or a crisis of not necessarily confidence, although that is related to it, but a crisis of credibility, because you
Mhm.
think, do I have the credentials to be able to coach this person? And then it's the thing of, well, I think a lot of people don't really understand coaching, and the reality is no. But um, let's say this. I get asked about doing certain types of communication coaching, and I have a hard boundary on relationship coaching because I'm not a
Mm.
relationship coach. I don't enjoy relationship coaching. I don't want to do relationship coaching. So I have a hard boundary about that. And I say, no, I'll do this, but I won't do relationship coaching.
But
And
wait, the question though, even if you
yeah,
choose not to because you don't have an interest in that, could you? Right? Without being a
yes.
counselor or a therapist, could you be a relationship coach?
Yes.
Yeah.
To a point, to a point. And so you sometimes end up with this thing as well where I've seen this actually. A friend of mine who wanted to be a relationship coach at the time did not have a successful relationship. And it's like, can I be a relationship coach without having a
Right.
successful relationship myself?
Sure.
The
Yeah.
answer is yes. Do
Yes.
you have to have success in the thing that you are helping or coaching somebody in? Not necessarily. So I think the answer lies somewhere in, like, is the answer to the question, can you coach anyone or anything? We talked about this before, but the answer is yes, and the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because officially, technically, yes, you can ask the questions, you can coach anybody. I think there are certain times in coaching relationships where you may need somebody who at least has an understanding of where you're at or what you're looking to achieve. You know, if you are looking to work in the area of sales or a competitive area. But the thing is like, if it's pure coaching, the answer is yes, you can coach anyone and anything.
Yes, and I agree. This is really kind of the answer I came to, and it's in alignment with what you just said. When you are purely coaching, there are definitely tools that you can use as a coach to dig and dive and dig and dive. I think where it becomes the no is when there is a level of consulting that needs to be done, right? If somebody's like, hey, I'm the CEO of 8 different companies, and I do have a client right now that is something like 7 or 8 that are all tethered. Can I coach them? It is a very long commitment and it's a very um technical it's like a it's almost like the string of Christmas lights trying to keep everything in order and unravel things. So there is a different level of expertise there, but I'm able to do both because of experience. If it's not something that's in your wheelhouse, number one, do you want to? That's, I think, first and foremost, always the question. And I think the second check in with yourself is do you have tools, right? Because then it doesn't really matter. And are you comfortable using them? And if you even move forward though, and you come to a point where you're stuck, you are actually stuck with the client, and even if they don't realize it, that's something from which you need to grow as a coach. But to your
Yeah.
point, right, there has to be, I think, some discernment between will this require me to also be a consultant? And how far into that do I even wanna go? Because I am a coach, right? How am I supposed? What's my role here? And asking yourself that, but it is a yes and no question. It definitely is. And it can start with imposter syndrome, and you have to work through that and say, "Well, how do I coach this person?" I remember I had a client who was a high-level executive with NASA, and my initial I'm not gonna lie, right? Full transparency. My first thought when I found out that this was going to be a client of mine, I was like, what? How can I possibly coach this high level person from NASA? And then it was so funny because I had to be coached in that moment and realize it had nothing to do with me, right? Coaching had nothing to do with me. And I didn't need to be an executive at NASA to be able to coach this person. And we actually ended up having a very successful multiple rounds of coaching relationship.
Mhm.
So it really is like understanding what your role is, I think, and using your tools. Using like I think it's important as a coach that you don't just get on calls with people and just like have conversations. Like you need to be able to have almost like a okay, not that we should be therapists, but therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists have specific tools to help patients deal with specific challenges. If it's anger, if it's anxiety, and I'm not talking about pills or anything, I'm just saying there's tools. So, as a coach, there should be tools in your tool belt that you can utilize to give to your clients to help them grow. So, it was just a really eye opening conversation because I don't think I thought of it in the depths that I went to with it.
Yeah. Definitely have no shade on generalist style coaching. I think it can be very valuable. Ontological coaching can definitely be very valuable. I often find when I employ that in my own coaching sessions, clients will come back and say that they got more out of the sessions from
Yes.
that style of coaching than from just about anything else. However, with the kind of work that I mostly do, there is an expectation that I have an understanding of the industry, that I have a good understanding of how things work and what needs to be done, that there is a level of consulting and even mentoring that needs to happen
Mhm.
within the kinds of coaching that I do. I had a
Yes.
client, I had a client a while back who was and still is an internationally well-known, like world famous speaker, and you can only imagine the kind of imposter syndrome that I was getting with that. Like, this guy's
Oh, yeah.
much more successful than me as a speaker. People know who he is. People don't necessarily know who I am. Um,
Right.
what am I going to coach him on? How's that going to be? And this even is my wheelhouse. And like, he is more successful to me, but he wants me to be his coach. Um, the coaching actually went really well. It was very effective. It was good. But yeah, goodness me, the stuff that was coming up for me in the meantime was definitely questioning myself and my ability, my
Yeah.
credibility to be able to coach him. But that wasn't what was even important to him. It was more important
Hmm.
that he had a coach that he could trust, who he knew enough to be able to help, and kind of wanted someone to listen, but also someone to help him dig into stuff and see what he couldn't see. And that's what we were able to do in the sessions, and probably a bit more besides. But I do think there is an element to which, if you go to somebody for coaching on, back to relationship coaching, right? Because no. Relationship coaching is like,
He
just don't
has
wanna
to
do
do
it.
enough relationship coaching with me in our relationship. No, I'm joking.
Can I do it? Yeah. Has it come up in coaching calls in other ways? Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm fine with
Mhm.
that, but I don't want to specialize as a relationship coach. Um, I wouldn't enjoy it. It's not my area as such. But for those who it is, great. Is someone who wants to be a relationship coach going to do a better job of coaching someone in relationships than me? Yes, because they want to do it.
Sure.
Because they have a better sense of the kinds of questions or the kinds of issues that come up in that area. They have the experience to be able to sort of get a better sense of what's going on. They'll tune into things more effectively than I would, because I'm just sort of thinking, can we talk about something else? Whereas they're thinking, oh, tell me more. This is really interesting, right? So, so it's definitely important. And it doesn't mean, again, doesn't mean that you can't do that. I think this maybe does speak more to the why it's so valuable to find the way that you coach best, the things you like coaching people on the most. You
Sure.
can bring all of your coach's skills and experience to that, because everything will come up and become relevant at some point with certain clients. But the majority of the work that you do and the things you focus on are already going to be predetermined by the kind of work focus that you have.
You know what's interesting? And I do believe that is true, but there's something that again, I've been reflecting and thinking about this, that I am very opposed to the level of information. Okay, wait. I'm very opposed to gaining too much information about a prospective client ahead of the game. So if I do, for example, if I'm doing like corporate coaching, I'm working for a corporation and I meet with the leadership of the people or persons that I'm going to coach. I always say, "Let's meet. I want to get some insight." But when they say, and I always ask, like, what is the best outcome that you would like to see from this? And I want to know that, but I have to be honest with you. It is not how I guide. I still will guide my sessions with that person organically, right? Without setting an expectation like we have to hit this. It doesn't work if I'm going after like a specific thing, right? If the client says, "Angie, I've noticed this is my biggest challenge. I really want to go." And it may be something that I've never even worked on before. I still have the tools to help them then kind of hone
Yep.
in on what is necessary. But it's almost like I don't know why I thought of this. I've never watched the show a day. Like The Masked Singer, they call I think that's a show. But anyway, it's
I've
like
seen
we don't
clips. Yeah.
yeah. It's like the less I know, I almost feel like the better the outcomes because I am still human and I don't want to have a positive or a negative expectation because that's what happened when I was and I'm going to keep using this example this NASA client. It was kind of, um it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. What was most important was, why are you talking to me? So even my pre-discovery call surveys and then my pre-coaching surveys, they're very short and they appear to be ambiguous, but that's done with intention because I don't want the Reader's Digest or the Cliff's, oh boy, am I dating myself? Geez, version of what they think the issue should be. I want to be able to have the ability to go into sessions with the tools that I use, and there are things that I do, by the way, very consistently, no matter whom, no matter where they've come from. Like, it doesn't matter. There are certain things about my sessions and the way in the course of working with me that are specific and repetitious. I do them every single time.
Mm.
And as a result of that, I am less inclined to be affected or at all influenced by the belief, the need, the what the expectation is, even though I'm aware of it, and and able to ultimately get better results. But it took time to recognize that for me, there were specific tools that needed to be in place in order for me to get out of my own way, right? Can I do this? Should I be doing this? And that doesn't mean, like, have you ever been in a relationship of coaching with somebody and out of nowhere they say something that is so um shocking that you say, "Uh-oh, we've now gone into the danger zone. I do not coach on this." So, I've had it a couple of different times. Both times it was 2 different well, both times it was abuse, different types from different, and I was like, "Oh." And that can definitely disrupt a flow when somebody says, "And this is what happened," and you're like, "Wait, what? You just said that like, oh, I just bought a loaf of bread." So things like that can be unforeseen because we don't
Yeah,
know, and of course, we have to know how to navigate those things, which we've kind of talked about in other sessions, but I mean,
we
other,
have.
uh,
But they
but
can
like,
completely change the coaching relationship as well,
absolutely.
to some degree. And I can remember a client I was working with several years. We'd been working together before suddenly that comes up in a conversation because of an incident that happened before the call, that her partner was not only married but was also beating her up, and it's like, well, we need to look at this. But you know, where we had been primarily focused on business and everything else, it's like suddenly this
Yeah,
becomes about, you know, my immediate concern is wanting to help her get away from that. And but you know,
right, and
she still has to figure out what she wants to do within that. But it's like, okay, well, we are not going to be talking about your
right.
resume or anything like that in this session.
Yeah, but
Let's
therein lies the problem, right? Because
yeah,
that can forever change the dynamic. Because even if
yeah,
you say the right things, like, "Listen, Angie, listen, John, I this is way out of my level of," now, unless of course you are a licensed psychologist, psychiatrist, and you kind of do both, you coach and that's fine. That's on you. For me and for John, for myself and John, and for most coaches, right? We don't have the fancy letters at the end of our last name to even begin to address that. So that changes like a session or two. But you as a coach, still, it's like you can't unhear and unknow what you now know. And I think it's really difficult to navigate past that because once somebody says something to you and they share it with you and confess it, if it's that kind of a thing, now you're like the safe person for them and they want to keep bringing it up. It can be very, very challenging. I mean, that's like a whole different ball of wax, can of worms, whatever you want to call it. But so the point is, though, we don't always know what's going to show up. And, but I do think it's really important to be able to get out of, like, I don't know. I think for me at the end of the day is, if you don't have tools to help you navigate, and we're not saying, John and I, be all things to all people. That's not what we're saying. it really depends on who you want to be as a coach. Do you want to only focus on one area? Do you want to focus on all areas? Whatever that is. But do you, outside of imposter syndrome, ever feel like, hmm, I don't know if I can do this or should do this?
I even also think that as a coach, you will naturally find yourself steering coaching calls to the areas where you like coaching on, where you can be most helpful and useful anyway. And you know, if that's already clear from the start, like you, and let's say that you are like me, a speaker coach, but we're going to keep bringing steering stuff back to that. If we start veering too much off those topics, we're going to keep taking it back to that. But I'm talking more like this may happen in generalist coaching calls as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am more likely in generalist coaching calls to probably steer things a bit more towards the professional side of life, the business and financial side of things, which I would rather work on with people than their personal situations or anything like that. But that stuff will come up inevitably from time to time. Um,
Do you
uh,
think is
yeah.
value? Do you think there's value for somebody to, I think to have any, I would have any type of training and coaching beyond like,
Oh
hey, how
God,
do you
yeah,
start a business? Yeah.
yeah,
Right. To
yeah, hundred
help.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not completely sure how valuable like unless you actually want to be a certified coach for the or you need certification for the kind of work you want to do. I'm not sure how valuable those particular certifications are, but it's certainly better than just sort of calling yourself a coach and setting up a business with not none of that. And then again, I do know people who've had no coach training whatsoever who are excellent at coaching. They're just naturally good
Yeah.
at it, or they've just maybe built up experience over time. I say naturally good, maybe there's not just it's come more naturally to them, and they figured things out.
Well, even outside of the certification though piece, like I
Yeah,
feel like there are like, and this is something John and I've even talked about, right? What do we do next? Do we actually take and combine our expertise and create something? Because it kind of makes sense to actually put out some, what I would call maybe like core coaching tools, topics, themes that can work in any type of coaching, any type, to any person at any time. And it's not, there's not an abundance of that. It's not like, oh, there's 85 different modules to this, but like there are some core concepts that can really help you, even if you're naturally inquisitive and empathetic and all of the things we've talked about. There are definitely some core concepts that, if applied, can keep your sessions out of the weeds because you can always go back to them, and make sure that, not make sure, but make you more open to be able to coach more people if you so choose. If you're not somebody who's like, this is my coaching and this is my little world and my avenue. Um,
yeah, yeah. I agree. I would never really coach anybody on spirituality or anything like either because it's just not something that appeals to me. And it would very much depend on what that meant to the person as well. But it's not an area I'd go into. But there are people who really want to do that, who focus on that. Are they going to be the right person to go to for business coaching? Well, if you want to be aligning your chakras instead of your profit and loss, um, then sure.
I'm so sorry. The
There
way
is a
John
level.
says things sometimes is so shocking to me. So matter of fact. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Sorry."
But it's
Okay.
not gonna be right for everyone. There are some people who will take that spiritual approach to business, and that will be
Yes.
right for them, and there are some people who really
Yes.
won't, and that's just not gonna work for you. So,
Yes.
you do have to take things from, the right coach for the right kind of situation that you're in,
The
and accept
tools.
the
Yes.
tools. And if you go to I do think if you go to a coaching company, particularly to want to work with a coach, they should have coaches that at least have met a certain standard and have the experience to be able to deliver what they are offering to you and deliver it well. Because I can
Sure.
remember,
Yeah.
and I'm not well, maybe I'll name names. I can remember coaching people who belonged to another coaching company from a very well-known coach, a very well-known life coach, and their coaching ability was not good. Their business was not good. What
Yeah.
they were getting paid was not good. Like, the whole setup was not good. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and just thinking, well, are people getting what they pay for there? No, probably not, but people are trusting the name that they're operating under, and so they're getting clients through from it, but
Sure.
they're not getting
Reputation.
treated well, they're not getting what they want out of it, and they're not really equipped to deliver what is actually being sold. And that stuff is really important. But you look to something like Better Up Now, which is one of the big companies we talk about. You do at least have to have your ICF certification. Does that make you a great coach? Not necessarily, but you at least have met a certain standard already.
Yes. Understood and agreed. I don't know. I think it's something, I don't know, John, I need to consider something about some next steps here because no, it was a really great conversation. And the interesting thing is that what I shared with this person shifted their entire perspective. And they don't have, it was like
Absolutely.
one conversation and all of it changed because of the self expectation. And how do is there anybody, if you're a coach out there already, I'm curious, do you share? Have you ever had those moments where you felt either intimidated or even not that somebody was above you, but maybe like, I'm a 57-year-old woman at this point, and if a 20-year-old girl comes to me and says, "I need life coaching," I could coach her, I'm sure. I'm not sure that I am as relatable as I might think I can be, depending on what that she needs from me or he, like whomever. So I think it can be like an individual challenge to think about. But I also believe at the end of the day that there are some core concepts that can be delivered. And I believe and have experienced and delivered myself that I don't care if NASA comes as an entire entity and says, "We want you to come here and coach all of us." Okay. The answer is okay, I can do that. That wasn't always the case for me. So, there's that.
Look, you have to be able to create rapport with your clients. If you can't do that, the
Yes.
coaching is going to go nowhere. So relatability
Sure.
is a really important part, and so is your interest in being there for the kind of coaching. It's like these are all
Right.
critical elements. But no, rapport is probably the main reason why human coaches will do better than AI coaches in a lot of situations, because what kind of rapport can you really have with a computer?
Yeah,
You
now
you
we can
can't.
have that whole conversation again, but yeah, I agree. I'm always gonna stand by the human element, that. That's where I sit.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too. And whilst there's people, and including ourselves, who get plenty of value out of like AI coaching and stuff like that, there are elements of coaching which I just would not go to AI for, where I
No,
need some human interaction, where I need rapport, where I need people to hold space and whatever else. So yeah,
absolutely.
I think that this stuff is already important. So can anyone coach anyone on anything? Still yes and no. But I think you maybe understand a bit more at
Yes.
this point why it's both answers. Like, yes, sometimes
Yeah,
yes, sometimes no.
definitely. I agree.
All right, let's wrap things up there for this week, but we'll be back again pretty soon.
Do you have a question for the coaching clinic?
Reach out on LinkedIn to connect with Angie and John.
Leave us a voicemail or video message and we will feature you on the show.
You can also leave up to 90-second voicemail for free on www.speakpipe.com/the coaching clinic podcast.
We'd love to hear from you.
See you next time.
Bye for now.